All right, welcome back to Cricket for Americans. Nick here.
Gabe, the Night Watchman. Woo! I'm excited for this.
We're not going to waste any time, ladies and gentlemen. This is going to be a follow-up to the solo reaction I did on Is Baseball the Future of Cricket? And I said in that video, I got to get Gabe in this next one because I felt really bad reacting to it by myself. But I kind of did at the same time. But I knew he would enjoy this. This is the follow-up from Six and Out. Great new channel. Go ahead and check them out. Don't forget to like and subscribe there. This is the risks of England's cricket or basketball cricket strategy. And if you haven't seen it yet, watch my reaction to the first part. It's a great informative video about basketball and the future of test. And I had said it in that video, and the viewers, subscribers said the same thing in the comment section. Wait till you play India and Australia, and then you can start talking about if this is the future or not. Right. And they haven't done that yet. They haven't had a chance to do that yet. This was incepted, if you will. The inception of it was after the Ashes when they got destroyed by Australia. Right. So we'll see. But I'm excited for this video because this is about the risks of it. This is where it's not all, sunshines and roses. Right. And they haven't won every match they've played so far since they've, introduced basketball. What are your thoughts on basketball and, the whole situation?
I was upset that I wasn't able to make that video with you because I already said, and I put it down, basketball is the future of cricket. Bottom line. Nobody wants to hear it. Just like people in baseball did not want to hear sabermetrics. Sabermetrics was the future of baseball. And this is their version of sabermetrics. Trust me. They didn't just willy-nilly say, let's just go out there and play aggressive and swing it. No. There was guys that went and said, okay, how many times do we get a Rory Burns that goes out there, defends, eats up, 2-3 over. And now he lost his wicket on 3 runs. You know what I mean? Like, they've done the numbers. They've crunched it. How much more stress you put on the bowlers by attacking, having that mentality.
Positive intent.
I love that video you did, Nick, because it sounded to me just like when people were explaining sabermetrics. One of the things people hate about sabermetrics is that you don't give away outs, right? Yankees were huge on sabermetrics before a lot of other teams, right? Obviously, a lot of Yankee players, and that's why they're saying the Yankees stole it, were Oakland A's player, the Donnie Damons of the world, were, spit on that pitch. Spit on that pitch. Even if they strike you out looking, make him throw it. Make him throw it. Make that arm wear down. And by the 5th, 6th inning, we're into that bullpen. By the 4th game of this, the 3rd, 4th game of the series, we're in your bullpen and we're destroying those guys. And sooner or later, it works out. And that's been the Yankees' keys to their success. A lot of other teams have really gotten into this not stealing bases. Why give away a free out? Now, baseball has tried to counter that by making the bases bigger, by only allowing you to throw over twice. So now they're like making it even harder for the catchers to throw you out. And literally, I saw one of the craziest things, Nick, that people were upset about. First game of the baseball season, Ronald Acuna literally gets up high and he's leaning back to the bags. I don't know why he's looking at the pitcher throws, boom, gets back to the bag. Next time, takes a little bit bigger of the lead. Pitcher goes, try to throw. You don't got an A move, you're trash. Only with lefties this won't work. Boom, gets back. First stolen base of the season, I want you to look at it. He looks at his dugout and is like, 2, right? And then looks at the bench card. 2, that's it, he can't throw over anymore. And literally, it was a running start. The minute the pitcher looked up, gone. He stole it up easy.
It's easy.
And that's why they're trying to find a way to bring back the stolen base, because with sabermetrics, they said the risk of getting caught stealing a base and not having pitchers deliver from the strikes, that's part of the thing of sabermetrics, where pitchers are just less effective when they have to pitch from the strikes as opposed from the windup, right? They get more power from the windup, more fluidity. So you always want traffic on the base pads. And why give away an out? Now that literally last year, opening day, there was 5 stolen bases. This year, 25 stolen bases. It's changing. So that's why I like Buzzword, because it's forward thinking. And I think that you have to change the game because, and I hate when people get upset at me, but the athletes today are better than the athletes of yesteryear. I'm sorry.
I would say in most sports besides the NBA, yes.
I mean, they're just more physically dominant. They have better nutritionists. They have better trainers, right? So you look at these guys, and you've got to figure out a different way to play the game, because you're not playing with part-time players, or you're not playing with guys that got, look at some of those old school baseball players with their bellies out. The guy looked like he just came from working a shift at the dock. Is that what ball players look like now? Those dudes look like Adonises, just yoked. And it's the same thing in cricket.
Some pitchers still have that table muscle. But the other guys...
I never heard that, the table muscle.
Table muscle, yeah. I found out that term when I was doing research for my book. Table muscle is an old way of saying
table muscle.
They got the weight there. But we're going to go and check this out. This guy loves himself some baseball, so do I. But I'm excited to react to this. I want to see the second part of it. I feel like I already know what the risks are, but I'm excited to see what this guy has to say.
Tell me what the risks are.
The risks is tests. You have to be patient, and people are going to eventually start bowling according to how aggressive you are. You only have so many guys that are going to have certain styles with the batting, so it's all about understanding that style. Mix in the slow ball a little more. Mix in whether you're doing the bouncers here or there. You remember you get 2 of them per over or whatever. It's about having them get those edges, bringing those slips in. Because it's still test cricket. It's still a game of endurance. And the more aggressive they are, the more you're going to feed into the bowler's hands over time. But, like you're saying, they're not going into it without thinking about it. You get the right kind of players like a Harry Brook. This guy's been fantastic with Bazball. Bringing in Duckett. He's been fantastic so far as an opener with Bazball. It's working right now, but it's just a huge risk. And typically, I hope it's not the Chip Kelly form of cricket where he came into football, sped it up. We're going to get twice as many plays in every game. And it threw people off at first.
Wow.
2 years later, he was out of a job.
Wow. You know what? as you're making your arguments, I'm over here debate. No, you're wrong there. No, I can. That's the one thing I can't. The other side hasn't adapted yet. And if you don't know, Chip Kelly was a college football coach that came into the NFL and said, we're going to just wear these guys out and run plays so much quicker, just like the NFL. We're going to run twice as many plays as the other team. We're going to have that defense gas. And for about 2 years, it looked unstoppable until the other side sat down and said, okay, now let's counter. And is there a counter to this? Absolutely. Absolutely. And you can be, okay, if I know you're going to be aggressive, I can throw junk up there. I can go ahead and, you know what, if you're going to be charging, charging the crease, I can throw that bouncer on you like you were just saying and take your head off. So, and that's why a team like Australia, if there's not going to be a team, I don't think, well, there's Boomerang. But I like I said, I don't think there's that other, as an aggressive, come on, Australia's got the most aggressive bowlers, in the world. Those guys just throw hot gas, they throw beans, they know. But, a Broomer does, but you don't see other Indian bowlers, intentionally just throwing at guys like that. That's just not, in their makeup. So, I'm not sure if they have what it takes, India, I'm just saying that bowling squad, to kind of combat Bazball. But you're right. With an Australia, I can see them say, okay, you want to.
And how is Bazball going to play the subcontinent with those turning pitches, right? We're gonna make you, because they're gonna be like, dude, all these spinners, we're gonna run up the track. I'm gonna go halfway up that track and just kill it. Okay, good luck with that.
Then they'll full toss.
You're gonna look silly.
Then
it's gonna be 100 all out.
Oh my gosh, 100 all out. You know what? I want to watch this video.
Can't wait. Please don't forget to
like and subscribe.
And here we go.
Push Test cricket into an exciting new direction, but it's not without its own risks. Stay tuned to find out why next.
So that's the end of the last one.
In part 1 of this series, link on screen now if you haven't already checked that out, we spoke about how England's new cricket style had a psychological focus on playing positive, almost carefree cricket that didn't pay too much emphasis on the consequences. This focus brought England success in the shorter formats of the game front and centre into its Test cricket. And when draws are taken out of the equation, it made for a truly exciting spectacle. And at its heart, that's what Bazball is all about. But in the test matches that England have played since Bazball was introduced, there have been aspects of their game plan that can be used to an opponent's advantage. And that is the topic of today's video, as we unpack 4 different factors that could affect Bazball England at the test level. The last one is especially important, and I don't really have an idea of how they could fix it going forward. By watching to the end of this video, you should be able to make your own judgment on whether Bazball is the future of Test cricket or not. And maybe you even want to leave a comment down below. Now let's get started. Point 1 is, survive the first wave. This England side places a huge importance on early wickets. In the 12 tests that England have played since Bazball was introduced, their opening spell with the ball has resulted in an early wicket 50% of the time. It's not just what these wickets represent on their own either. On 8 of the occasions where they've got an opening wicket, they've directly resulted in a batting collapse, like South Africa at the Oval, where it started at 1 for 2 and turned into 6 for 36, or at Mount Maunganui versus New Zealand, where it started at 1 for 14 and ended with 10 for 126. If early pressure turns into early wickets, it's likely been the case that it turns into an England victory as well. These collapses give the impetus of the game to England. They can decide who comes on to bowl and for how long, and giving them complete control of the game. Therefore, a winning strategy against England is about nullifying the impact of this opening spell. It's not so much about dominating the opening bowlers, but more about nullifying their ability to have an impact on the game. As an example, we can look at New Zealand's efforts in the second innings of their second test against England at the Basin Reserve in Wellington. Although being told to follow on after being all out for 209 in the first innings, still trailing by 226 runs, New Zealand's openers worked hard to stay at the crease and not give away an early wicket. Off 315 balls, the opening pair put on 149 runs for the first wicket and brought England's lead to a much more manageable 77. Kane Williamson was then able to anchor the innings, create a foothold for New Zealand with the middle order, and they set a 258 run target for England, a target they didn't chase down. Looking at the scorecard, it looked like digging in for the long haul was a clear tactic by the New Zealanders. None of the strike rates of the top 5 are above 50. Only one is above 60 in the entire scorecard. By picking batters with strong defensive fundamentals, their defense can then be turned into offense later on in the game.
Love that.
There's another side to this tactic.
Love that.
In part 1, we spoke about how Anderson and Broad are one of the best 1-2 punchers in the history of Test cricket. Their ability is unquestionable, but by playing the long game, opponents can force them and the wider bowling cohort to bowl more overs than they would like. These issues then create wider complications for the captain. He has to think about how much can I bowl a bowler without risking further injury, and ask other bowlers to take on more of the workload, like Jack Leach did, where he bowled 61.3 overs on his own. And if their second and third options are conceding runs, that ramps up the pressure with the captain even more. While up in the change rooms, the management staff will have their own concerns. Bowlers' workloads are managed to ensure that they can stay as fit for as long as possible. This isn't just related to Broad and Anderson's age, it's the same for all international teams and the rest of England's bowlers. They all have management staff that will monitor their workloads, and if the opponent can push the limits of these workloads, they can force the hand of the management staff to rest these players in the next game. Now, it's possible for England to have depth in their bowling stocks to replace some bowlers, like they're aiming to do for the 2023 Ashes against Australia. But replacing Anderson and Broad, who have gotten 1,261 wickets between them, is a gargantuan task. And dare I say, perhaps an impossible one. And it's not like some of these bowlers that they're calling upon haven't had their own injury issues as well.
Oh, Chopper.
Mark Wood.
The next talking point we'll look at is this win-at-all-costs focus. Now, this focus has set the stage for some really entertaining cricket and for bringing people back to the game of Test cricket. And that should be applauded. But this focus, in its own way, comes with its own hazards. Now, the draw is sometimes seen as the worst possible thing in Test cricket. Whether that's something you believe or not, allow me to play devil's advocate for just this one time. Historically, success in Tests are regarded on a per-series basis rather than a per-match basis. When we think of Test matches, while there are certain great matches that live on in our memory, the thing that shines strongest is the result of the series and the moments that led to that result. Sometimes, although not as entertaining, a draw can be as important as a win, if it means that a series victory is still possible. And more importantly, series wins are what coaches and captains are measured on. For as long as the winning continues, administrators will not question the tactics that are on display. Framing this talk through the lens of the World Test Championship, a draw still earns more points than a loss. It's unknown how this recent England tour of New Zealand will be regarded in a few decades' time. But what will remain in the records is that England created a situation where they lost an almost unlosable test match because of their aggressive mindset, and in the process became only the second country in history to lose a match after enforcing the follow-on. This and the drawn 1-1 series result will stay in the record books. To view tests as singular events and not to take the test before and after that into account risks the overall success of Bazball as a tactic and England as a team. Because in order for this team to be regarded amongst a pantheon of all-time great teams, including some from England itself, it needs to win series and not just only matches, no matter how entertaining they are.
I agree.
For point 3, I want to have a quick look at the opponents that they've played so far. Now, some have made the case that England's success so far can be put to a large part because of the teams and the conditions that they've played in. I generally think that these types of arguments are quite low level and get leveled at all the good teams, especially when they're going well. But in the case of England, and for the sake of this video, I want to have a quick look at this further. England's most recent 2 tours away to Pakistan and New Zealand respectively had them facing some pretty inexperienced and understrength bowling lineups in both cases. Pakistan gave 5 different bowlers their debut during that series and were without stars like Shaheen Shah Afridi. Not to mention the first test pitch created its own controversy for its road-like qualities.
Road-like.
Given a demerit point, but then that was rescinded after an appeal from the Pakistan Cricket Board.
Wow, they got it back.
The first test included 2 debutants with the ball and Neil Wagner opening the bowling, which is something he doesn't usually do at test level. Going back further into their fixtures, there might be an argument to say that the reason that they beat South Africa at home has more to do with South Africa's poor batting than it does about anything else. But that full-strength South African bowling lineup restricted England to under 200 runs on 4 separate occasions. While it's too shallow and unfair to say that England won because of these reasons, I mean, you still have to get 20 wickets to win a test match. It does raise at least some questions in my mind. How will they go against a full-strength Australian bowling lineup which is at the same standard or better than South Africa's full-strength bowling lineup? And how will they deal with the Indian conditions and the standard of Indian bowlers that they have at the moment, namely Ravi Ashwin and Ravi Jadeja at home? The only way we're going to find out whether this argument has real legs is to wait and see.
Wow, what a ball.
And that brings us to the...
So, I mean, that goes line with what we were talking about, right? About the bowlers you were talking about what the Australia has, and about the conditions in India and the bowlers they have. India's no slouch, but those conditions, they really excel in those areas. But I love what he's saying. I like how he also said, like, it's easy to say the competition's been easier. It's still a test team you got to beat. Right? It's still a match at the end of the day.
Right.
You can't be docked points because of who you're playing on your schedule unless it's college football where you have 300 people to choose from and you're choosing the 10 worst teams to play against and you're undefeated. He makes some good points.
Final factor in this video. It's this point 4 where I still have question marks as to how England are going to fix it. England's success is built upon a blueprint. Before the team is even selected, the coaches and the management staff have an idea of how they want to play, and therefore the roles that they need in the side to fit that style of play. Therefore, team selection is not necessarily just about form, it's about finding the right type of player that fits the archetype of the players that they need in this side to play the style of cricket that they want.
Tampa
And
Bay
with a
Devil
deep
Rays.
pool of shorter format cricket players and some of the best bowlers of all time, England's transition to aggressive cricket has been pretty easy. But there's one role in this blueprint where there's only one player, and if he's gone, it throws the entire system in jeopardy. And that's Ben Stokes. Ben Stokes wears many hats in this side. He is England's lion, the proud captain, the face of the squad, and the #1 motivator of all the players. He's the middle order batter who can anchor an innings or sometimes even put the team on his back and run down these huge run chases as we've seen in the past. And he's the 4th option bowler, the one that picks up the slack for the other bowlers and puts in the hard work when nothing seems to be going right and getting the hard wickets when it's needed for England. He is the most important player in this side, bar none, and gives the team its balance. But what if he's not there? Ben Stokes has been struggling with a chronic knee complaint for some time now. Whereas some players can be rested or even take a leave of absence, Ben Stokes has continued to play and play through the pain, where at sometimes it looked like he could barely walk properly, and his bowling workloads have gone down significantly as well. Although at the time of writing, England aren't scheduled to play any more tests for quite a few months now, Ben's schedule is still full as ever. He has the IPL, he's going to be playing in the Test series against Ireland, he has the Ashes. This Bazball system relies on Ben Stokes, and Ben Stokes at full fitness and wearing all the hats that we spoke about earlier. If he steps away from the bowling, another bowler needs to be picked to pick up the workload, and then therefore another batter needs to be dropped. If you get rid of him altogether, you lose not only all of his productivity, but his intangibles as a captain as well. It throws everything out of whack. I raise this point not to say that Ben Stokes getting injured would be a positive for the opposition. Ben Stokes is one of my favourite players to watch in the current era, and I want to see him play for as long as possible. But I do raise it as a talking point for us to discuss. Other than allowing Ben to play through the pain, no matter how career limiting it might be and painful it is to watch, I don't really see another way England could rectify this issue. If you have any thoughts or potential replacements for Ben Stokes, let me know in the comment section below. And this has been part 2 of a short series on Bazball. Now that you've hopefully watched both parts of this series, you might be able to give your own opinion on whether you think Bazball is the true future of Test cricket or not. For me, I'm not 100% decided. I think it's still a bit in its honeymoon period, and it hasn't really faced a true test, like it probably will against Australia and India in the next 12 months. I love watching the cricket that it creates. but I'm not too sure about its long-term viability, given its reliance on players like Ben Stokes, which really are once-in-generation player. Let me know what you think, and I hope you enjoyed watching this series as much as I enjoyed making it. And if you did, please leave a like below. And if you're new, thanks for checking out the channel and consider subscribing. Here on screen now is a player that I think is going to make a big impact on the next Ashes coming up. If you haven't seen
Scotty
this video
Boland.
already, please check it out. Until the next one, take care, and I'll see you soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Scotty Boland. Would love to see that video. Maybe we'll react to that. Let us know if you want us to react to it. I wanted to finish this one here. Please don't forget to subscribe to this guy. This guy's fantastic. He's able to get through it quickly. He's able to give us so many facts. To answer his question, who could potentially replace Ben Stokes? Nobody. Right. You don't have Ben Stokes growing on trees out there.
Right.
And I'm going to say right now, is it the future of Test cricket? I'm going to say yes and no. I think it still has room to grow. I think it still has room to adapt to.
Right.
Right now it's so raw. Right now it has some places to fit. But like you said with sabermetrics in baseball, that's a great analogy because teams handle sabermetrics a little bit differently. They focus on different things for the most part. Some focus on the same things. You're going to have a lot of teams, if they're struggling, how can we implement baseball into what we're doing with our players?
Right.
They're going to talk about that. Because like one thing that I forgot to mention with baseball that he mentioned in the first video is it's not just the aggressive batting, it's also the bowling technique. We've got to get those early wickets. We've got to put the pressure on them.
Right.
We've got to set up our bowling lineup in a certain way to where we can get those early wickets, like he said, because sometimes the dominoes start falling.
Right.
So I do think it has a place to stay going forward for a long time, especially bringing new fans to the game. But I don't think it's done being tweaked yet.
So here's the thing: sabermetrics till this day is not done being tweaked, right?
Correct.
And sabermetrics, for instance, in
And
baseball,
which parts of those do we focus on? Right.
it began with just making pitchers throw more pitches. The analytics show that once pitchers threw over 80 pitches, they became less effective. You know, if you can get a pitchers to throw, yeah, exactly. Then after that, it started to, okay, well, now we can start shifting, right, to help out our defenders because guys are going to pull the ball into this. And it got so good in baseball that they just banned the shift this year. But people forget, shifting was a part of analytics, right? It was part of sabermetrics because they were like, wait, these guys are only hitting the ball, 95 or not 90, but like say 70% of the time they're pulling it to their right side or left side, depending whether they're a right or a left-handed batter. Right. We're going to go ahead and stack the defense that way. Just a lot of little things. So it doesn't just have to do with the batting. It has to do with the bowling, the defense. And I would say that cricket already does that, right? Think about Test. And when you watch Test, you got 5 guys, 6 guys back there in the slips. You're like, well, because they're expecting that edge. They know that because of the way the guys are playing, the batters or batsmen are playing defensively, and they're just trying to survive. More than likely, they're going to get a faint edge or a weak edge, and they're going to be able to pick one of those up in the slips. That's why you don't have anybody out really patrolling the field. So it's, in my opinion, sabermetrics and that mentality has already been utilized there. He said 2 things. A, I do think it's a future because he hit the nail on the head without... He looked at it as a negative, but I looked at it as the way teams think and as a positive. He's right. There is only one Ben Stokes. However, this is why they're incorporating a Ben Stokes. There is only one Jimmy Anderson and one Stuart Broad. This is why they're incorporating baseball. Players like the teams like the Tampa Bay Rays and Oakland A's realize, look, first and foremost, it's so hard to find those generational players. But if we can create a system that puts our teams at an advantage to play, regardless what players we stick in there, we're going to give ourselves a chance to win. And more often than not, it's successful because it just follows a blueprint. Are you always going to win? Absolutely not. One of the big knocks on sabermetrics is that Billy Beane still never won a championship. He made it to the ALDS with a $40 million payroll. $40 million, which is like, what it was, I think it was like not even a third. It was something crazy, like maybe a quarter of what the Yankees had, or even less than that. Who they lost to. Like, look, it was successful to a point. You still need those special players. Yeah. But I believe that the reason they're doing that is because England's looking in the cupboard and saying, we don't got another Ben Stokes coming. We don't got another Jimmy Anderson coming. We don't got another Stuart Broad coming. We got to figure out different ways to win the game. And them seeing, look, trying to play the long game and Test actually benefits the teams that have those special generational players, right? Have those Coleys, have those Ben Stokes, have those. I mean, we're talking about the creme of the creme. But knowing that not all teams have those, and at times your own guys aren't there, let's implement a system where we don't have to, you know what I mean? Like wait for these generational talents to come around to carry this team. So I think that even though he mentioned that, I think that he's missing the point that's why they're incorporating a basketball. Another thing he talked about was how basketball was the only, and I agree with him here, was the only time or utilizing basketball that a team turned a sure draw into a loss. And I never understood draws. I remember the first time I saw a draw in cricket, Test cricket, I was like, what are we? This is
you
so.
can have a draw.
I lost my mind. What are you talking about? You gotta have a draw.
And we call it a tie, but it's not a tie; it's a draw.
And then I saw the greatest game of my life, and it was the Ashes. And watching a team that had nothing, England, nothing to play for. You're getting whitewashed in Australia. You're getting it handed to you. And seeing Stuart Broad and Jimmy Anderson stand on that crease, bro, I still get chills every time I talk about it. Those guys, that's why you're an athlete. I don't care that everybody else gave up their wicket. I don't care that we're supposed to get whitewashed. I don't care that they knocked everybody over. Not on my watch. And that's what I don't want to lose a draw now, because that was one of the greatest. If you did not see that Ashes series, people are only going to remember that England lost
shellacking 4-0.
4-0, right? But go back to the one game that they didn't get shellacked. And go back to those last 20, 30 overs. Everybody's on the edge of their seats. And these guys are out there saying, not on my watch. Nick, it was one of the most incredible things I've ever seen. So from that perspective, basketball is going to take that away. But most fans say, oh, we hate draws. Right? They do. Even though you get more points for a draw than a loss, most fans hate draws. I would venture to say most players hate draws. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
But it is one of the most special things that I think Test has. So for me, I hate that when more teams start playing more aggressive like basketball, and to your point, it's a copycat league, just like any other sport. Other teams are going to do it, and once they find some success, you know, especially those teams that don't have the talent, they're going to say, we might as well do it. And they're going to, come on, it's going to happen sooner or later, right? With that being said, it's sad that it's going to be fun at times to see a team lose a certain draw and then end up losing the team, especially if it's your team that, you know, that comes back and like, oh, wow, we actually won that game. How? This other team threw it away. But, I mean, those are my thoughts. What are your thoughts on it?
Just one thought, and it's one thing you said about the Oakland A's. You talked about the Rays, and I'd also throw in the Twins besides the last 4 or 5 years. The Twin way, we heard all the single time. Gardenhire, their manager. They only want a certain way to play. And talk about sabermetrics, different thing. It is a winning strategy, but it's not a championship winning strategy. Those Twins in the 90s, or the late 90s, the 2000s, 2010s, never won a championship under that. The A's never won a championship. The Rays never won a championship under it. And they had less to do, and they did more with less.
The Rays won one, actually.
No, they haven't won a championship.
Didn't they win that championship?
They went to 2 World Series. They lost to the Phillies, and
they lost in the World Series.
Dodgers.
They get all the way there. Wow! So all the sabermetrics, that just throws me off. They've never won a championship.
Now, the Red Sox have won one with sabermetrics later on.
But they had the stars. They still had the big poppies and
too. But they used a lot of sabermetrics to coincide with it.
Right.
So this is what my point is. This is why I think it's going to be elevated. It's going to be adapted. And think about England, right? They invented cricket, right?
Right.
Other teams were able to eventually catch up and surpass them in certain ways at different eras. They invented T20, and people thought they were T20. That's stupid. That's not cricket. And now it's the biggest sport right now. Yeah. They recently won a World Cup. I think it was their second one, T20 World Cup, but they're not winning it every single year, even though they invented it. Right. I think there's going to be a team, and it could be in Australia or whatever, those teams that are just obsessed with cricket and are very successful with it. They're going to take it. They're going to take that mold, and they're going to elevate it, and they're going to make it. And it's going to be one of those things like, well, England started it. Brendan McCullum started it. He may go back home with New Zealand and get it with them going on,
You hit the nail on the head.
But someone's going to take it to the next level, and that's going to be the championship.
What's been the team to crack the code so far? New Zealand. Because New Zealand, wow. As you're talking, I'm like, but that's why. Because Brendan McCullum is a Kiwi. They all have that mentality. And I always watch New Zealand play, and people kill me. But they're like, everybody's like, oh, They don't have the big super. I'm sorry, Kane Williamson cannot stand up to a Ben Stokes, cannot stand up to the Cody's of the world. But he just does it methodically.
He's got so much heart.
He does it methodically. He'll wear you down and wear you down.
I thought he was done.
Wear you
He's
down.
not done, ladies and
And
gentlemen.
I've seen Kane Williamson wear down my West Indies to like 200 and something runs. I hate Kane Williamson with a passion. Oh, I hate Kane Williamson with a passion. But I think the Kiwis are going to be the ones, because think about it, in such a small nation, they already dominate cricket. They've probably been utilizing baseball without people knowing it, and the only reason that it's become more front and center now is because England has really pronounced it. But think about Brendan McCullum. What is he? A Kiwi, right?
Yeah.
And think about who else is dominant especially in the smaller formats of the game. Who won that? Who was in that championship?
Against India.
New
Zealand, and they won.
New Zealand, and won it. Who was in the white ball controversial championship
New
versus
Zealand.
England? New Zealand. So you hit the nail on the head. The team that's going to really take off with it, sorry England, it's going to be the Kiwis. And who knows? They've probably already been utilizing the strategy, just keeping it hush hush.
I just want to know if McCullum was like trying to like plead with New Zealand, like we've got to do this.
We got to take it on board.
And I understand why they would say no to it, but then he got that call. I don't know. I'd be interested in someone to do a history or a little video like this one.
Why'd he go over to the enemies?
Why'd he go over there?
To the dark side?
But I don't know. Maybe he didn't invent it. Maybe it got created after I don't know. Let us know what your thoughts are. Let us know if you know the history about that. Let us know what you think about this video. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. And until next time.
That's 6 runs.